So I've been posting photos and some links to some videos on my community board. So if you look where it says home, videos, da 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 da, there's a thing that says community. Click on that and I posted some photos and links to videos, stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing that consistently now. Um, Kind of like, it's more like I consider it like the Facebook section, because my Facebook, I don't really post anything. It's more of like, I very rarely post anything. It's more of just like a communication thing between old friends and family and, stuff like that. So, we're going to start from after after the last time that I saw Kurt. So that would have been the show in Salem, Oregon. I think I said Albany on accident. Um, so at that point, I'm pretty excited, you know. One thing that I didn't realize at that time is those guys were on tour freaking constantly. So I think Kurt had told me that, yeah, yeah. I seem to remember him saying something about, he's not going to be home right away and to call in a couple weeks. So, something like that. And I ended up calling. Nobody answered at one of the numbers. And at the other number, I talked to somebody. It would have been, I guess, at the management's office. And then I finally talked to Michael Mijel. And he sounded, I remember him sounding pretty nice and, wanted to help me get in contact with Kurt. Though he never got back to me, after we hung up. It was a pretty quick conversation. He was just going to, let Kurt know and give him my number and, whatever. So I'm guessing that he probably took my name down and then, Kurt was barely even home. So I'm just guessing that he never got the message. So February rolls around. I don't really remember. I know that Laughter Train was getting pretty busy. We practice. Man, we practice a lot. Practice a whole lot. I do remember one more thing that I talked to Kurt about. I had found that Univox in a thrift store in Albuquerque that I brought back with me, and I told him about that guitar. And he asked me which model it was, so I tried to explain. Anyway, I do remember that. So I don't hear back from him. I try calling a few times over like the next few weeks. Just nobody was getting me any information. I wasn't getting a hold of anybody. It was becoming kind of frustrating. In March, I burnt my hand really bad. So bad that I had to go to the hospital. I burnt the skin like almost completely off like two of my fingers. So I couldn't play drums for a few days, but then I just wrapped my hand really good and I just kind of hold the stick and I was able to pull it off. And in March, there was word. I remember a friend calling me when Kurt OD'd, and telling me that Kurt died. I mean, he that was the initial rumor, is that Kurt died, and then it was um, then it was more of the truth that he OD'd. But I remember hearing that, and then of course he came to within, I don't know, was it 48 hours or something like that. I don't think he was in a coma very long. So that was a relief when we heard that he was alright, but that fucking worried me. Oh, good lord, man. Last time I could only imagine, you know? I mean, everybody was freaked out. So, I guess I only really heard... I may have tried to call Chris at that point, too. But it seems like I don't remember talking to Chris on the phone. I think that I did try to call him, but he wasn't available because he was on tour or whatever. Then comes April 5th, and that's the Mazzy Star show. And I've already told this story pretty recently, but it was, yeah, April 5th, 1994, I ran into Chris at Mazzy Star. And I was worried because, I mean, in the last, month before that, there was at least two times there was news that things happened with Kurt, you know. Something else made national news or local news, and maybe it had to do with something happening at the house, you know, with the guns or something. I don't remember, but the OD obviously. So April 5th, talked to Chris, and again, wow, you know, I was reflecting that I was worried, you know, so he may have not wanted to worry me more, you know, by saying, you know, don't believe what you hear, Kurt's doing fine. But he also may have thought that Kurt was in rehab still. It kind of seems like he was completely out of the loop those last days. And that's part of what I was talking about in the last video, is I think that, you know, when those guys were off tour and not practicing, I don't know if Chris was really talking to Kurt much, you know. Kurt was kind of in his own world. Hanging out with drug dealers. So, April 5th, talked to Chris. I'm thinking, oh, okay, you know, that made me feel better. Don't hear anything until April 8th. And April 8th, I get a call from my brother, and Bruce said that, you know, he told me that Kurt was found dead and, you know, it was suicide or whatever. And that day, Laughter Train was playing in Ocean Shores, which is by Aberdeen, on April 8th. Very, very weird. And that night, I had a dream that, see, this is bizarre, that my brother died, and I was looking into, like, the casket, looking in, and it was dark, and I couldn't really see anything, and that's just, like, I remember it wasn't, I don't remember seeing anything. But that was my memory I had that night. So my brother calls me and tells me that Kurt died. Anyway, so of course I'm freaking out. I didn't, at that point, oh yeah, my hand was still healing, so I was playing in bandages. Everybody wanted to go and play the show, and I was kind of in a, state of shock. But I was like, let's go. I remember just like everybody sitting in the van, and I'm, crying off and on, and I'm upset, and I'm confused. But we had lunch in Aberdeen on April 8th, 1994. What the fuck, I just remember, like, I can visually see this. I'm sitting at this table. There was probably about 6 of us. And I look over, and they had a newspaper, and there's Kurt on the newspaper. And it was just like, it was very, very strange. So we go to Ocean Shores and played the show, and then I remember we went back to this hotel, and I remember sitting out on the porch area on the back. There was, just like a little back deck thing, and I was just sitting out there by myself, kind of just in shock. It was obviously affecting me, like, greatly. So on the way back, they dropped me off at my mom's. I didn't go back to Tacoma. I went to mom's and hung out there, and I remember, like, writing some stuff and just talking to mom and my stepdad, and just really in a state of shock. It didn't make sense. It didn't seem like Kurt, So I don't really have a whole lot else to say. It was just a big hole in my heart, and everybody else. What I do remember is right around that time, Chris's number disappeared. I literally had to go by the house to say hi to him. I mean, he changed his number. He was, the one time I went by with my ex-wife, and we just hung out with Shelly, Chris was just up in the bedroom, like, sleeping, and I'm just guessing, like, it was not too long. It probably was that same year. It's just frustrating. I mean, I wish that I would have been able to talk to him more, at that time. It's just so bizarre. But that's basically my story, and everything that I remember in '94 related to those guys. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed. Not that I can think of right offhand. So, okay, yeah, there you go. Alright, thanks for listening. Yeah, the video that I just did, too, it's, a short thing on that band The Grind, and Hell House, and Tacoma Punk Rock, and it's pretty interesting. I could have even done more. I might even do some more stuff like that, because there's so much to say, There's so much detail with, so many different people that were around then, what bands they went on to, and, alright, thanks, bye.